Hi, I wanted to make a video on the topic of inflammation. So you hear a lot about this these days, thankfully, which is a really good thing. But I wanted to do a short video just on kind of the basics on what it is, why it's a bad thing, and how we can, from a nutritional perspective, kind of decrease it in our bodies. So clinically, what I like to do is generally I've been testing everybody for inflammatory markers. Sometimes you can just determine it based on symptoms. Anytime there's any kind of, let's say muscle aches or pains, skin issues and inflammations, these things generally tell us that something's going on. But it can be other things too, right? I mean, cancer, um, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, any of the quote unquote lifestyle diseases generally will have some component of inflammation as a root. So it's a really, really big topic. And inflammation it's something that you can measure on lab tests, and they're relatively cheap to run. So I always say to everyone, if your medical doctor doesn't test them, go see your naturopath and just get it done, because it's better to know and then to deal with the issue than to not know and just kind of have it be a surprise when a more intense or a more serious illness develops. So inflammation actually is a good thing in the right context. So it's a little bit like stress, right? We want to have a certain amount of stress in our lives because it allows us to grow. It allows us to kind of face challenges and actually get through them and then learn from them. But it's when stress becomes chronic that there's an issue. And it's exactly the same thing with inflammation. So when you're injured acutely, let's say you sprain something or you break something or you cut yourself, you want there to be an inflammatory process, because that's what's responsible for cleaning things up, moving out any debris, and actually healing. But when that gets out of hand, then we have a lot of chronic diseases as a result. So inflammation, it's a big topic, but generally speaking, where I like to start with it is cleaning up the gut, because our gut is pretty much the hub of everything in our entire body. So it's responsible for mental health, it's responsible for immune health, it's responsible for just general health. So eliminating foods that typically are the culprits in causing inflammation is hugely important. And generally speaking, those foods are things like wheat and any gluten-containing food. And there are so many reasons for that. I should make a video on that separately. Dairy for most people, corn, soy, alcohol, red meat that is not organic or grass-fed, any kind of sugar it could be table sugar, but also just refined carbohydrates count as sugar as well because they break down in the body that way. So, if somebody comes in with high inflammation markers or symptoms that are suggestive of it, then I always get them to eliminate these foods for a period of time, just so that the body can actually relax and recover for a second. And then, in that period of time, also including things like increasing your water is hugely important. My favorite type of water, and what I recommend to everybody, is spring water, if you can get your hands on it, which there are a lot of companies that provide that. So it's available, so that's a great thing. And just water is a hugely important thing, because what does it do? It helps us to flush out all the things in our bodies that don't need to be there, among other things. But when we're talking about inflammation, that's the role of water. The other thing that you can start doing is making bone broths. So this is hugely, hugely important. It's a delivery system of tons and tons of nutrients, but it also has a bunch of anti-inflammatory aspects in it if you're making it right. And my website does have a good recipe for bone broth if you're curious. So that's something that you can include, and that'll actually start to heal the gut once again. It'll heal the gut and it'll heal the cells in the gut so that the gut can actually do what it needs to do and get rid of the things that it needs to get rid of. So those are some things that are really good. And Exercising is another key piece of this. So when we move, when we exercise, when we move our bodies and our muscles, it's like the lymph system gets activated. And when the lymph is activated, then again, we're able to move things through and we're able to get things out of our bodies. So it's just about, getting rid of the things that cause the inflammation, but then allowing the body to heal and to really excrete the things that it needs to excrete. Sauna is one of my favorite things, and this is one of the reasons for it is sweating. Our skin is one of the main organs of detoxification and elimination. And when we're able to sweat and get stuff out, it's amazing. The Finns were onto something when they came up with the sauna. And they also included contrast therapies, right? So they would do a sauna and then a dunk in a cold lake or pool or whatever. And contrast showers are another good way to get rid of inflammation. So if you're not familiar with what contrast showers are, basically get into your shower and turn the water on as hot as you can tolerate for 3 minutes. And then for 1 minute, as cold as you can tolerate. And just go through that cycle for 4 to 6 times. I usually do it about 4 times just to save a bit of water. I feel guilty, but it's really good because it'll totally boost your circulatory system and just move things through, which is hugely, hugely important. And then obviously if the digestion is not working well in somebody, you've got to get on that and make sure that they're eliminating as regularly as possible, because that again is another way that we get rid of things. But I think really the biggest thing is just getting rid of the foods that cause the elimination, the inflammation. Because really, you can detoxify yourself and you can do all this work, but if you're going to go back to eating a ton of sugar or a ton of gluten or, any of the other things that I mentioned, it's going to come back. And it's something that isn't tested routinely, but I think it should be. And so it's something that I recommend to people all the time is just once a year, get it tested the same way you test your blood sugar or your iron level and just see where you're at, because there are really good effective ways to decrease our inflammation markers. And in the long term, it's going to be so beneficial for you. So yeah, give those things a try.